Of the 7 mainline Dragon Quest games I've completed, Dragon Quest IX is now my third favourite game, sitting alongside fan favourites such as 8 and 11, and even handily beating out Japan's #1, Dragon Quest V. This is a bit of a hot take. Within the series, Dragon Quest IX is known as the multiplayer Dragon Quest. Great if you have friends with a DS back in 2009, or great if you lived in Japan, but in present day is considered a severely compromised experience for those playing it solo. But I played through Dragon Quest IX for the first time in 2023, purely as a single player adventure, and it was great. And in this video I'm here to implore you to give this game a try. Upon release, the marketing hook for this game was the multiplayer, and most modern YouTube videos I've come across do nothing to challenge this perception. However, what was at a time a very unique selling point for the game has done a huge disservice for its legacy. I too am a victim of thinking that this game was meant to be played in multiplayer, that I'd be getting some kind of watered down experience playing it in single player. But that is not true. Dragon Quest IX can easily be enjoyed as a fully fledged single player JRPG experience with the same care, production values and story that we expect from the series. Dragon Quest IX, much like Dragon Quest VIII, is developed by Level 5, and DQ9 is a great follow-up, improving and overhauling many of the systems established in 8. But before I start gushing about Dragon Quest IX, let's look at the elephant in the room. What exactly are we missing by playing Dragon Quest IX in single player? I think the biggest drawback is your party. Each of your 4 party members act like 4 silent protagonist blank slates. This means memorable characters and dialogue of, say, a Yangus or a Sylvando are missing here. This is because each of your party members are created at the start of the game, designed to be swapped out at any point for a human when playing multiplayer. So surely this massively hinders the plot and characterization, right? Well, yes, in the grand scheme of things it does. However, as is common in the DQ series, a lot of the great dialogue and characterization comes from major NPCs found in each of the plot's isolated chapters. Dragon Quest often has a formula of go to a new town, meet a new major NPC, work with them to solve the town's problem, and repeat. So unlike in most other JRPGs, most of the story here is not party driven, so the loss of proper party members is not quite as big of an issue as it could be. Next, let's look at the mechanical benefits of multiplayer. Well, speaking with no actual hands-on experience, one of the major features seems to be grotto maps. Grottos are these procedurally generated late and post-game dungeons that have the potential to spawn rare items and end with one of 12 grotto-exclusive bosses. Grottos are most certainly accessible in single player. However, the game has an early Street Pass style function wherein if 2 random players make contact with one another, they each share 1 or 2 of their grotto maps that they have. Meaning that, say, an underground train journey in Tokyo could salvage, say, 24 maps, something that could take several hours to accumulate on your own. However, much like, say, the Chalice dungeons in Bloodborne, these grottos are a nice addition, but the rewards are hampered by uninspiring levels of repetition. So by playing in single player, we are drip-fed these grotto dungeons at a slower rate, but it's no true great loss. Right, so with that bit of housekeeping out of the way, let's delve into what makes Dragon Quest IX so great, such as the translation. As a standard with the series, Dragon Quest IX has exceptional translation, focused on puns generated from British colloquialisms. These puns and exaggerated dialects are stuffed into every corner of the game, including item descriptions, characterful dialogue of townfolk, and enemy names. Speaking of the bestiary, the variety here is pretty staggering, and possibly has the fewest number of palette swaps in the whole mainline series. Favourite new entries include the Cruel Cumber, Sasquatch, Wooper Trooper, and the Boppin' Badger. Dragon Quest IX even includes some great callbacks too, with all franchise bosses like Dolmagus, the main antagonist of Dragon Quest VIII, or the Dragon Lord, the final boss of the very first game, being fightable in post-game legacy grottos. Grottos that can be accessed in single player but require DLC. Thankfully, if you're playing this game with an emulator, finding and downloading this DLC is really easy. Combat, on the other hand, comes with a fair few improvements too. For the first time, enemies are visible on the world map, eliminating random encounters. Additionally, there's a great emphasis on equipment, with weapons, shields, helmets and armour all being fully modelled and animated. They've even had a boost in their functionality too. For example, many footwear types add a new stat that dictates the percentage chance to evade an attack. Shields have a percentage chance to fully block an incoming attack, and wands are the magic user's best friends, considering that they now are able to absorb MP when used for attacks. These are some great, thoughtful, characterful additions to equipment that was sadly dropped in Dragon Quest XI. Enemies too are a little bit more dynamic here, being much more inclined to be charmed by party members or enraged and focus all their offense on just one character. Combat is rejuvenated further thanks to the best job system in the series. Well, maybe Dragon Quest X does it better, that's the next one on the Dragon Quest bucket list. Unlike DQ3, 6 and 7 that introduced job classes 10 to 30 hours into the game and had interesting if convoluted and grind-centric tier-based jobs, Dragon Quest IX keeps it simple. Around 3 to 5 hours into the game you get to Old Trader's Abbey and can switch between 6 starting jobs, with a further 6 jobs periodically being unlocked through occasionally onerous side quests. New jobs start at level 1, however weapon proficiency from one job carries over to the other. So say you level up a priest, you can allocate skill points to their spear, change over to the paladin later in the game and those spear points are still there, along with any skills you unlocked. This means you never really restart a job from square one. This dramatically reduces the need to grind, whilst also subtly encouraging a little bit more experimentation. The soundtrack was a surprising highlight in this game too, coming off the back of Dragon Quest XI, which had very few new compositions, due in part to the series composer Koichi Sugiyama being 87 at the time of the game's release. Dragon Quest IX on the other hand has a plethora of new tracks, most not heard anywhere else in the series, and the standard might be the highest in the series. And if Dragon Quest IX were ever to be remade, I would kill for orchestral renditions of those tracks. The story too has some of the most interesting setup in the franchise. The protagonist starts as this newly recruited Celestian, basically an angel living above the clouds that is assigned to protect and grant the wishes of a small village. Once you perform good deeds for your village, you transport that gratitude to the great tree Yggdrasil with the hopes of it one day bearing fruit. As the prologue winds down, the tree bears fruit, but this act unexpectedly spells disaster, leading to you losing your wings, but still being able to support and communicate with the dead, thanks to your connection to the afterlife. With most chapters centering around a wandering soul that needs some business taken care of before they can ascend from the mortal realm. Standout NPCs for the game include Erin, who you help discover as part of a long-lost lineage of Innie winners, basically Oscars for innkeepers, with her eventually being the NPC who lets you recruit new party members. Stella, a fairy, is another standout, being the only speaking character who follows you on your whole journey, and whose rambunctious attitude and sassy dialogue is always a highlight and adds some much needed flavour to your party of 4 silent protagonists. So hopefully here I have managed to demonstrate the qualities of Dragon Quest IX. Everything I've detailed here can be fully appreciated in solo mode, and I hope I have illustrated that describing Dragon Quest IX as this multiplayer Dragon Quest game is selling the game short. This is an exceptionally charming and elegantly designed JRPG, and as stated in the intro, is now my 3rd favourite Dragon Quest game. If you're interested in Dragon Quest or turn-based JRPGs, I implore you to give this game a try. Despite its dwindling legacy as this multiplayer-focused game on a dead handheld, Dragon Quest IX has so much to offer. It's impeccably well paced, and just pure JRPG goodness of the highest calibre. Anyway, thank you very much for watching, and I hope to see you next time.